Hello, everyone, and welcome to this month's Talking Tim webinar. My name is Kevin Vita, and I'll be helping facilitate today's webinar. This webinar is sponsored by the Federal Highway Administration and hosted by the National Operations Center of Excellence, also known as NOCoE. As a quick reminder, NOCoE offers a variety of resources to support the transportation systems management and operations community. Now I'm going to cover a few logistics for today's webinar. All of today's attendees are in listen-only mode by default, but we'd like you to stay engaged by using the chat box for identifying yourself and the agency you represent. We'll have a Q&A portion at the end of the presentations, and we encourage you to ask any questions you have during the presentations in the Q&A pod as they come to your mind at any time. The questions will be read out loud one at a time by the moderator, and our presenters will answer each question. I would also like to state that this webinar is being recorded, and the recording and the slide deck will be available on the NOCoE website within a few days. So that's all I have, and with that, I'll hand it over to our Master of Ceremonies for today, Joe Tebo.
Thanks, Kevin. Master of Ceremonies. Good deal. Hey, greetings, everyone. Welcome to this month's Talking Tim, another exciting and information-filled session. So thanks for taking the time out of your day to join us. And next slide. Oh, there we go. It's our standard disclaimer. If you've been here before, you've seen it before, but we don't promote or suggest or recommend any items, materials, or anything. But when you see them, it's simply because that's what the folks are using. So we're not doing a promotional campaign, but hey, you know, the folks are using what they're using. So there's our disclaimer. And here's what we're going to do today. I'm going to give you a brief rundown on the latest updates from Federal Highway and things that we have going on. We've got two great guests with us today. We'll have Adam Perez from Tennessee. I'll talk about that, the strategic plan and its implementation. And I tell you, I heard the presentation the other day, and I guarantee you, once he's finished, you're going to want to know more, right? It's so many great things that are going on there. And from there, we're going to have good Assistant Chief Thayer Smith from Austin Fire Department. We're going to talk about the thinking out of the box and their method for removing crash and disabled vehicles from the roadway on their own. And he's got some great stuff to talk to you about. We'll have a Q&A with those presenters, and as Kevin said, please drop your questions in the Q&A pod. If you drop them in the chat pod, oftentimes they get lost. So get into the Q&A pod and drop your questions there. We'll be happy to address them. And then we'll have a listening session for Crash Responder Safety Week strategies. So next slide, please. These are the updates from FHWA. We're going to talk about the responder line of duty deaths and training statistics. We're going to talk about Crash Responder Safety Week coming up on us quick. Have you begun your TIM self-assessment? We'll address that also and kind of tie it into a little CRSW. And there's a publication out there that you may or may not be aware of. The assessment of data sources for first responders struck by crashes. And I tell you, I've gone through that document and tons of great information in there. So we'll have a link to that for you. And things that we're presenting for you that where there are links to get to it, we'll have them dropped into the chat pod for you. So if you don't get to them real quick while they're on the screen, look for them in the chat pod. And hey, December's Talking Tim is going to be on a Thursday, December 12th, 1:30. Mark the calendars for that. The holidays tend to shuffle things around a little bit, so we're going to accommodate that and have it a little earlier. And at that presentation, the electric vehicle incident response checklists and good practices will be addressed. The responder line of duty deaths, this is That's okay, Kevin. You can pop on forward. There we go. Yeah, this is the rundown year to date. Unfortunately, but bad news. There is a shiny side, if you would, in the statistics, and that is there is a downward trend if you're a numbers kind of person. But every single one of them's a tragedy in its own, and we strive for the day when it's a zero. But this year, law enforcement and tow operators, are and when you think about it, right, typically on the road by themselves, and yeah, it's dangerous business. So we're continuing to work on that with prayers. We won't have any more for the rest of the year. So let's keep up that work and do what we can to make ourselves safe out there. Use every tool at our fingertips. Next slide. Hey, the training and Jim Austrich is online with us, I do believe, and from July 30th to September 23rd, 9.4 thousand, 9,400 Tim trained reports in, and that's outstanding because we're rapidly approaching the 750,000 total train mark, which is a milestone in itself. But the trainer sessions, as you can see, there's 615 sessions, 15,000 participants. However, only 23% of participants are providing training. So if you have the credentials and you've been trained as a trainer, knock a couple of classes out for us, right? Get it going again. The in person 23,000 sessions with over a 500,000 participants, and then web-based 192 total. Just incredible numbers. But we know that's a revolving door, so to speak, right? So we have to constantly stay on it because folks retire, folks change jobs, things happen. So we have to constantly stay on it to make sure that all of our responders are up to date with the training. Next slide. Hey, Crash Responder Safety Week, right? The week, 1 week out of the year where we get to stand on the highest mountain and beat our drum. That it's dangerous out there. Folks need to pay attention to what's going on. So this year, November 18th through the 22nd, our slogan for this year is responder ahead, reduce your speed as you proceed. And we have more information to help you along with that. Next slide. Yeah, so what can you do now for Crash Responder Safety Week, which is approaching rapidly? Be an ally in action. Share your efforts with us. Register for the national kickoff. That'll be on the Monday, November the 18th at 1 o'clock at NOCoE. Get yourself registered and take part in that. We'll have the FHWA administrator kicking that off for us as it's planned right now. Look forward to that. And get your social media outreach and all in line. And we have the CRSW toolkit that's available with this link right here. It's on the NOCoE site. So please take advantage of that. It's a wealth of information there to help you along and give you some ideas for some action. So it's coming. In 2024, there were 25 governor proclamations and 100+ local proclamations. So that's a huge part of this. Huge part of this. Next slide, please. And speaking the huge part of this, right? For 2024, Wisconsin wins is what the call of the day is. And if you take a look at all of the actions that they've taken or are planning, it's a tremendous effort. And I like to spotlight the proclamations there at the top. And you see they've already got the governor's proclamation in their pocket. county executives, 6 counties and 1 considering proclamations in their pocket. The mayor proclamation, 16 cities and 2 are also considering. So, you know, that's a big deal for promoting our cause, right? And getting the support of the leadership of our jurisdictions, and not at just the governor level, but as you can see, the cities and the counties playing a big part on that also. So, you know, now's the time, and it can be done. And you know, visit the NOCoE site for the toolkit if you need some help, and let us know what you're going to do. And there's the links for that will be in the chat, I believe, is what Vishali told me. So next slide. Hey, the 2023-24 TIM self-assessment, right? The season. It's the process for state and local, public safety, private, to assess the TIM program. September 3rd through November 30th, right, is the time to do that. The link for the online tool is right there if you can capture that. If not, I believe it'll be dropped in the chat along with the contact TIM's project team to assist you with that. And Crash Responder Safety Week, as noted, it's a great time, right, to collaborate and complete your TIMSA for your region. So, you know, that can be one of your actions, right, to make that self-assessment and take a look at how things are going and where you want to be. Please take part in self-assessments. Next slide. And this is the document I mentioned earlier. There's just a ton of information, great information in here. You can get in there and find something that applies to you. Talks about the way that they acquired this data and the difficulties of acquiring data. And it's the responder struck by crashes, and doesn't just focus on line of duty death, right, or death at the scene. It's more than that, and it gives you some great insight as to the whole issue surrounding first responders struck by crashes. Federal Highway Office of Safety and our office, Jim and Paul, our office is the Office of Operations, and along with Operations Research and Development, participated and contributed to this. And it really is. It's a great document. So please take the time to grab that and peruse through there, because there's something in there for everyone. And next slide. And now it's time, right? That's the updates for Federal Highway. We have our presenters that are in the bullpen, ready to go, and take the opportunity to, I believe, Adam, I believe you're up first. So let me bring you in. Adam Perez manages the Freeway Operations section within the Traffic Operations Division. He oversees statewide incident management program and statewide transportation management center program. And has some really fantastic things going on. So with that, I'm going to pass the floor over to Adam, and Adam, take it away. You got it.
All right. Thanks, Joe. I appreciate it. And also appreciate being invited to this month's session. We've got some great things going on with our strategic plan, and I wanted to go ahead and let the group know what we're working on here in Tennessee. You can go ahead to the next slide, please. So to start with, this is just a brief little agenda of what I'm going to be covering here in our slides. We'll go over some of our TIM goals, why we chose TIM, give a little bit of the background on how we got to where we are, and give an outline for our strategic plan and the way we've implemented it. That's currently what we're doing now. We're in some early implementation phases, and then talk a little bit about what our next steps are. Next. Right. So why the TIM strategic plan? So we look at these numbers pretty close every year. We look at them monthly. We post messages on DMSs about fatalities. We think about the safety of our own responders. We have Safety Service Patrol in Tennessee and all the responders that we work with. And these numbers are important to us, just as I'm sure they are with many of you out there as well. In Tennessee alone, these are statistics for 2023, we had over 184,000 crashes in Tennessee. So, these are all unique type crashes. No two crashes that are ever identical or exactly the same. 1,384 of these are fatalities, total fatalities in Tennessee, with a cost of $18.2 billion. Tennessee comprehensive costs, and this is only for fatalities. So I mean, it's costing folks time, money. It's taking people's lives. I mean, these numbers are what drives us and what makes us look at what we can do to increase our TIM activity in the state and how we can get better. 1,491 Tennessee total secondary crashes. 14 of those secondary crash fatalities. So, that secondary crash is typically worse than the primary. We're trying to eliminate and cut those down anywhere we can. We do have a queue protection plan in our state. We'll go on and talk a little bit more about these things as we move on. But 1,902 crashes involving over 2,000 first responders in our state alone. So we care a lot about our first responders. We have a large safety service patrol program. And so that's why we do the things we do. That's why we implemented our TIM strategic plan. Next, please. So on this slide, I have a list of folks that came together in July 11 of 2023. We had 38 representatives from 15 different agencies and organizations come together. This is what we called our visioning workshop. This is where we wanted to bring folks together in the state and talk about what was important to us for our TIM teams. What are some of the things that we can do better? And what are some of the things that we can include in our strategic plan? So these folks all came together. We did some polls, we did some surveys, questions, answers. It was a pretty open session where everyone contributed, and we talked through what are the things that were important for us in our state as responders to these large incidents and things that are keeping the roads closed for a long amount of time, and how we can address those things. And if we go next, we'll talk a little bit more about what we came up with. So in our session, we came out with 6 goals. Well, these are our TIM goals to start with. These are the goals that we have for our TIM program. We want to maintain strategy and provide foundation for a cost-effective statewide program, right? It's always good to be consistent with that. We want to ensure responders are trained in the best practice, and we do. We teach TIM in our state. We're pretty aggressive, and we got a large amount of the responders in the state trained. Implement safe and effective quick clearance strategies. We've implemented an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, with fellow agencies, Department of Transportation, Department of Safety and Homeland Security, which is our Highway Patrol, and others have come together and signed a memorandum of understanding, so that we can become quick clearance partners together. We want to restore the roadway capacity as quickly as possible. The shorter amount of time that we spend out on the side of the road is we're going to increase our odds of walking away from that crash. We're going to increase the safety for those people that are involved in the crash. So we do every little thing we can to try to get the roads open as quickly as possible. Maintain safety for the crash investigators. Those crashes that do end up long-term, we want to make sure that we've got these work zones set up as best as possible, and we've got all the safety equipment in place, and we're constantly viewing that, and we're doing double checks with our safety team just to make sure that we're on track. And then we want to rely on state and local partnerships wherever we can to improve our operations. Next, please. So in our visioning session, what we did was to come up with our strategic plan. We looked at what we already had. We had some things in place, such as our 2003 Highway Incident Management Strategic Plan. So that was kind of like an impetus, a starting point for us to look at that and reevaluate what material was in that and what needed to be updated and what we can pull forward. We brought this information to our session. We reviewed with the folks that were in place. Everyone agreed that this was a good place to start. We had a lot of information that we had to go on already. And we also looked at the best practices nationwide, what we had in place, our TIM training program, for example, our help service patrol, some of the best practices that we pulled from our safety service patrol, which has been in operation since 1999. We looked at what other states are doing, national TIM programs, and these are the things that we talked about in our session, and these are the things that we pulled together to put into our strategic plan. So next, please. So this is a brief outline of our plan. Well, I'll go through and get into each one of these a little bit more in depth, but we came up with 6 focus areas. 6 things that we found that we needed to focus on, and these are the things that we wanted to improve in our state. Of those, we came up with 50 action items. Now we have things to follow up on and how we can improve these areas. And we also have 170 activities that would need to happen in order to get these action items to go through in order to improve our focus areas. So next, please. These are the focus areas that I was mentioning. These are the 6 things that as a group in that session we found were the most important that we needed to work on, train on, and improve. So policy and procedure, right? It's always important to make sure that your policy is up to date, your procedures are current. Talked about our open roads policy. We want to make sure we review that. We update that every so often. We have change of executive management and leadership. Make sure we get signatures updated on that. So that was one of the first things that we wanted to do. Next, we talked about stakeholder coordination and public engagement. Always good to have people on the same page, right? Internal and external partners. Education and training. This was a big one for the folks in the room. They felt like education and training was something that would allow us to be consistent with each other. If we train together, there would be consistency. If we're using the same type of education, in other words, fire, law, safety service, tow operations, we already do that with our TIM training. You know, we try to do multidisciplinary training whenever we can, and we figured to continue on and to push forward our strategic plan, we needed to stick with that same model. TIM data management, right? We wanted to optimize our TIM data collection. A lot of agencies collect information slightly different than others. We want to make sure that when we're looking at this data, we're all looking at we might be looking at different numbers, but we wanted to reconcile what we're looking at, and that way we can compare apples and apples, and so that when we look at ourselves statewide, we'll have a good idea of the type of work that we're doing, and also the improvements that need to be made and where we can do better. Responder safety initiative. Again, that's key for us. We want to make sure our responders are safe. Optimize our vehicles, equipment, and for the DOT, which took a lead on this strategic plan. And I want to emphasize that this is not the DOT's plan. This is a statewide initiative. We want all agencies to take ownership in this. We did take a lead in organizing and putting our visioning session together, but we're a stakeholder and a partner just like everybody else. So we're looking at ways where we can improve vehicles, equipment, responder safety for all agencies that are involved. You know, if there's ways and funding that we can come up with to assist other agencies as a group, that's what we want to do. And the same goes for emerging technology. Folks thought it was important to make sure that we stay current with the times, the best practices, look at the current technology that's out there, what's available, what we're using now, and how we can leverage the new things that are coming out in order to improve our traffic incident management. All right, next, please. This is our statewide TIM organizational structure. At the top, you'll see where we have our statewide TIM steering committee. This is an executive level group that meets once or twice a year. These are like the commissioners, governors invited as well, but the commissioners of these agencies, executive leadership, colonels of our highway patrol come together and review what initiatives we're working on, look at our statewide plan, determine what focus areas we want to focus on first, what is the low hanging fruit that we can attack, where are the initiatives that would that we need to focus on throughout the course of that year. And then that's broken down further into working groups. We have working groups across the state, and these working groups will specifically be focusing on those 6 focus areas, those areas that we came up with. And so they'll put the right people in place so that as we work on those, we've got folks that are dedicated to those initiatives. And then when we break that further, we have regional TIM teams. Our state is broken up into 4 regions, and each region has, we have our counterparts in the DOT that sort of lead the initiative to push TIMs, but we work with all the responders and different agencies in that region, try to get to know each other, try to make those relationships wherever we can. We've got pretty good networking in each of those regions, and those are the groups that we bring together and we start talking about TIMs and how we can get better. And then below that, there's local TIM teams. You have your rural areas, your fire departments and your volunteer groups that get together. They request TIM training, but they'll meet on their own and come together in larger groups. So that's kind of how our TIM organizational structure is broke down. Next, please. So ongoing strategies, that we were looking at earlier throughout our first part of the presentation here is, kind of why, a little bit of the background, how we got to working on our TIM strategic plan outline. And now I want to look about a little bit and tell you about some of the ongoing strategies that we have going on. So go ahead, Tim, next, please. So TIM coordination, some of the things that have come out of our strategic plan already. We've had our steering committee met January 20th of this year. This is where our TIM strategic plan was signed, put into place. All groups adopted it. So now it is a living document for our state agencies and responders that we can refer to, and we'll have guidance in how we move forward with implementing our plan. Another thing that came out of that is that we were able to attain 2 TIM coordinators for regional support. And by regional support, the DOT has taken a lead with our traffic incident management teams, our TMCs. We have managers at those groups. We have supervisor levels that are over our safety service patrol. Our coordinators work with them as well as all the agencies in that region. So we have 2 coordinators. One is primarily responsible for the eastern half of the state. They take care of our Chattanooga and Knoxville area. And then we have one that's responsible for our middle and western part of the state, which is our Nashville and our Memphis areas. So that was a big move for us. We're very happy to have them in place, and they've been very effective with a lot of coordination and planning amongst the different agencies. Next. TIM training. We, as part of our data management plan, we put together a Power BI dashboard where all of our groups now have access and can look at the training that we're doing statewide. This is all based on the information that we provide to the Federal Highway Administration site. It's the exact same data. We've just put it in a visual format where folks can see who's being trained, how many folks are being trained, what areas of the state they're being trained. We just put it together where it's graphically more, I guess, appealing to the folks looking at it. One thing I will say about our TIM training is that we do collaborate a lot with our Tennessee Highway Patrol partners that are sister agency with us, and we help teach with some of the cadets that they have coming up, and they teach it together with us in our traffic incident management training. Our Memphis group in Region 4 just got through a 7-week collaboration with the Memphis Fire Department. They trained over 1,300 Memphis Fire Department employees, and it was a big undertaking, huge effort. But now they have all of Memphis Fire Department trained with Tim's training. I think that was pretty huge, and that's why I wanted to mention it here. But we do have a pretty active Tim team. We look at this all the time. We see what areas need improvement on. We're constantly seeking ways that we can bring training to folks that need it, and we're open for anyone in the state to ask for that training. Next, please. So unmanned aerial vehicles, right, for enhanced TIM. We're looking into this. There's other agencies that are already doing this. We want to see how we can use this as part of our emerging technology for our safety service patrol. How can we add these to our help trucks? We're looking at tethered drones. We just received a stick grant that's going to allow us to purchase 4 of these, one for each of our region as a pilot, and put them out there and just see what are the best ways that we can use them, and like where are there gaps where maybe we don't have cameras or CCTV coverage, or when there's full coverage, maybe we can see some of the areas that need extra protection. But the goal is to put them out there in a pilot program and find out what's the best way we could use them. Next, please. This is a big one for us, EV fire strategies. We do have a fire plan in our strategic plan, and out of that we're talking about EV fires. Of course, as you all know, an EV fire can go on and burn for a long time. And we've had those happen in the state. It's gotten the attention of our governor. It's gotten the attention of some folks high up, and they want us to push the initiative from our plan to see what we can do to get better, find out what we can do to improve our response to these things. So we're going to start some discussions, some meetings, some like discovery talks, and see as a state how we can bring these agencies together and probably brainstorm and find out what are some things that we can do to help, maybe with funding or equipment. But EV fire is a hot topic for us in the state right now, and so that's the next area that we're going to be pushing out of our strategic plan. Next, please. Training initiatives. We have done a little bit of training with EV fires already. In 2023, we've sent 5 of our safety service patrol staff down to our Spring Hill area, where the Illinois Fire School brought some training for safe operations at incidents involving battery electric vehicles. In June of this year, we were able to send one of our DOT personnel, as well as someone from our Tennessee Emergency Management Agency, up to Maryland for the Mattock Regional Traffic Incident Management Symposium. And so they were able to get some training on EV, the complexities of EV incidents, bring that information back to the state and share with others. But we've done these things at a minimal level, and so now we want to try to expand and see how we can improve and get better with EV fires. Next, please. So next steps on the EV fire response, complete integration of EV considerations into the fire action plan. And then equipment acquisition. If there's funding, we want to be able to get equipment for those agencies that need it. Maybe smaller fire departments that don't have access. See how we can find funding to get additional equipment. Expand the training, the educational effort, identify and pilot new technologies for EV incident management. So that's our next initiative. Next slide, please. Data management. I did already speak a little bit about data management. We do have a new data management plan. We've got leadership dashboards to help us make better decisions. We've got this all in one place. We've got a data integration space, kind of like a one-stop shop for all of our data. And so this allows us to improve what we're looking at and to share with others kind of the things that we're doing and help us to formulate which directions we're going next. Next slide, please. This is just an image of a few of the dashboards that we've come up with in our data management plan. There's an executive summary as well as regional comparisons. Regional comparisons kind of lets us know what we're doing across the state in our different regions, kind of compare a little bit about, some of how long incidents are taking, how long training takes, what type of incidents we're working on, an executive summary so that when we want to provide this information to either our governor or commissioner level, we're able to easily pull this information for any time period we want, and we're able to adjust the data that we're looking at. Next, please. So next steps are we're going to track and report progress annually. We're looking at what we're doing with our strategic plan. Want to make sure that we're on top of it. We're recording everything that we're doing. Let's review it and let's report on our progress. And we're going to review and update every 3 years, update our strategic plan, make sure we're on track, make sure the things that we put in place that we wanted to accomplish are actually getting accomplished. Hopefully I've summarized what we're doing. There's a whole lot more that I could talk about. I could go on a lot longer than this. In fact, I did in our practice session, and I don't want to run long now. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. And so next slide will show my contact info, as well as Josh Brown is our director. He was unable to make this discussion today, but I wanted to make sure to be here to provide what we're doing in Tennessee with our strategic plan. So thanks again for having me.
Outstanding, Adam. Thank you. Hey, how can folks get hold of you?
Oh, yeah, I didn't put my email address there, but it's simply adam.perez@tn.gov.
Outstanding. Could you drop it in chat for us?
I sure will. Yep, no
Outstanding.
problem.
And that's what I said earlier about your presentation. There's so much good stuff that you guys and girls are doing out there. So yeah, reach out to Adam and bounce some things off of him and find out how he cleared some of those hurdles, because everything from dashboards to training to EVs to UAS, you name it, right? And really cool with the regional committee. So, that's outstanding stuff. Thanks, Adam. We greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hey, no, thanks for coming. Hey, next we have Assistant Chief Thayer Smith. Been with the Austin Fire. That's a great looking truck. Let me tell you, I had to stop and say that. It's just a good looking truck at the academy there. 30 years with the Austin Fire Department. Serves as Assistant Chief of Operations. He's a member of Austin's TIM committee called Aim High. He served as National TIM Responder Training Instructor and implemented the Austin Fire Department's roadway safety programs. So this is a great presentation and information when thinking out of the box. And without further ado, Chief, the floor is yours.
Thank you for that introduction. Good afternoon, everybody. My presentation is going to be a little shorter and sweeter. We were asked to give you a background on one specific tool that we're using as part of our highway safety initiative. So we'll talk about that, but I'll give you a little bit of background more of where we're at with our programs here in Austin before we get to that one specific tool that we were asked to present to the rest of you. So next slide, please. So started way back when I was a lieutenant in 2001. We partnered with the Austin Police Department for a program that was affectionately known as CDR, Clear the Darn Road, but I let you guess what we actually called the D. But we recognized back then in 2001 how dangerous it was on the roadway. So with the police department, we became very aggressive in clearing the roadway. The Austin Police's Highway Enforcement Command back then was very aggressive in pushing vehicles off the road. We joined in that effort with them. As our partnership grew, Texas Department of Transportation around 2002, 2003 hired the Texas Transportation Institute to facilitate TIM meetings for us. And from that grew what is now known as the Austin area, or what became then was the Austin Area Incident Management for Highways. So what we call our Aim High TIM committee, and I've been a member of that then now since 2002. We meet bi-monthly. That has grown to our hero TxDOT crew here, all of our local TxDOT crews. We try to get as many law enforcement and fire agencies from around the Austin, Travis County area to participate as we can. And it's kind of morphed over, the last 22 years that we've had our meetings. It ebbs and flows with the participation, but we still do a pretty good job of getting together every 2 months and discussing issues in our local area, and then collaborating on training and doing post-incident reviews on anything that closes the roadway in Austin for over 4 hours. So that's going pretty good for us. Next slide. So one of the things I wanted to talk about was how we're able to do some of the things we do. And the Texas Transportation Code has a statute that the Austin Police has used for a long time, that's there on your screen, about removing property from the roadway. We previously, sort of loosely, through an agreement with the Austin Police, operated under the authority to push stuff off the roadway, drag stuff off the roadway, under their authority, because we did not have that authority. Then in 2021, the legislature decided to add fire departments to that. Next slide. So now in that transportation code, any authority, fire department, law enforcement, we can pretty much do anything we want on the roadways to open the roadway without any liability coming back to the fire or the police departments. And we use that very aggressively for responder safety, to push, pull, shove, any way we can get things off the roadway to not only open the roadway for transportation, but then also obviously for our safety, to get us out of the roadway as well. Next slide. So one of the other things we're doing a little differently now out of the box, because of the challenges our local police department has faced. They're down 350 officers, which is really more like 500 officers than what they used to have several years ago, because of some funding changes. The towing really got to the point where we were waiting on scene 45 minutes, an hour for an officer to arrive, and then the towing industry had another 45 minutes to arrive, and that just really wasn't sustainable for us. So again, through our agreements and through our meetings, we came up with something then to operate under the authority of the police department, because you have to have a police officer here on scene, or supposedly on scene, to authorize a tow. But what we've done is operating under their authority. We now, when a police officer is not available to respond to a crash, this is a CAD message, what you see on there on your screen. This is a CAD message we send across. This also comes with some other requirements. We put in the license plate, the color, the description of the vehicle in there, and then once that's in the CAD, our dispatchers shoot this message across to the Austin Police Department. That comes up as a record request, comes up as a separate call for them, and that's the standard information that's shared. And then once that information is shared, a on-duty sergeant for the sector will look at that, make sure there's not anything going on that they can see on their end, with the license plate that we provide, make sure that it's not a serious injury crash or anything like that. As long as it's just a basic crash, then that sergeant will authorize a tow truck. And the way the system works in Austin is they have a third-party administrator called Auto Return that manages all of their records for crashes. And now it's based on a GPS system, and usually somewhere hanging around in the vicinity will be several tow trucks. They're not allowed to solicit. They're not allowed to be within a certain distance of the incident scene. So they become very good at being right on the edges of where the GPS and that third-party administrator will pick them once they're authorized to respond to our scene. That gets them there much quicker. It's much better for us for clearing the roadway, getting back in service. So the tow trucks will come. We help facilitate the exchange of information. That's pretty easy these days, because usually people just take pictures of each other's licenses and insurance, and then they go about on their way. They can use our 311 system to file a police report when a police officer is not available to respond to our scenes. And so we've become quite adept at managing these crash scenes by ourselves when our officers are not available to respond with us. Next slide. This is what it looks like on the CAD when that message comes back. The sergeant will approve the record, then the auto return will authorize the record, and usually will tell us, like you see, Roaches is one of our local towers, and that will tell us which tower is en route to the vehicle, so we know which is the right tow truck when they show up at our incident scene that they've actually been authorized. So that's just one other way out of the box that we're trying to manage incident scenes here in Austin when we don't have the police. All right. And so the time is, I kind of see some things there in the chat, the 45 minutes now is, now this can all be done within minutes. So our clearance times have gone way up based on how we operate now. We can immediately plug in the license plate as soon as we get there. The sergeants will approve them. And like I said, now the tow trucks are usually hovering in the vicinity, and we can clear crash scenes now, probably within 15, 20, 30 minutes now, whereas before it would take sometimes hours to clear a crash scene. So it's gotten tremendously better. Okay, next slide. So what we were specifically asked about to present today is another thing that one of our members came up with. And so one of our members had previous towing experience in the military. He was familiar with using wheel dollies when he was a tower. And so this crew just went out on their own and bought a set of these. Didn't ask anybody. They were using them to push vehicles off the roadway and clear the roadway on the incidents just this one unit was on. And so at some point we noticed what was going on and said, hey, that's kind of a really good idea. We expanded that to all of our aerial apparatus in the city as a pilot. The pilot has gone so well that we were able to identify some additional funding to what we're doing now is putting all of we call them go jacks. They're wheel dollies for whatever reason. We call them go jacks, and we put in these go jacks on all of our apparatus. And now, even though the towers are usually much quicker than they used to be, then we still have the ability for incidents that are not that serious to be able to utilize these on the vehicles, get them pushed out of the roadway, get them off to the side to wait for the towers, not only to clear up the roadway for traffic, because traffic in Austin, as I'm sure everywhere, is horrible, but also gets us out of the roadway for responder safety. And next slide, I think that may be it. So short and sweet, that's how we're using the go jacks, and that's kind of the couple of things we're using here in the Austin area for the safety of our first responders to get them off the roadway quicker.
Outstanding. Thank you, Chief. How could folks get hold of you if they need some more information?
I will put my email in the chat and be happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Outstanding. Well, thank you. I mean, that's great, thinking out of the box and improving your incident and roadway clearance times. Yeah, I mean, it's good stuff. Great stuff, thinking out of the box to keep things moving and keep folks out of the travel portion of roadway anyway. So yeah, greatly appreciate it. So now we're going to open it up and move to a listening session here and some questions for the presenters. If you have questions, please drop them in that Q&A pod. I know we've had a couple and they've been addressed, not so much for our presenters. I know there's been a request or two for a copy of the presentation, right? So folks can reach out to you directly on that. A reminder that this is recorded and will be on the NOCoE site for viewing in the future. So if that helps you too, you can always find it there. So What do we have going on in the chat there? Vishali, you still with me?
I am indeed. So there was a question, and while it was already answered in the chat, I think it's worth repeating for those that do not actively follow the chat. And that was by Daryl Keaton. Can you provide the source data for the 1900 plus crashes involving first responders that was cited?
I believe that
So
was Tennessee, right?
yes, for Tennessee. So I don't know, Adam,
Yeah, that
if you want to answer.
the source is Titan. That's our Tennessee integrated network. That's where all the law officers enter that information into our statewide database.
Cool. I hope
Excellent.
that helps.
If I may
And-
jump in, Joe. So Adam, is that
Please.
the same as the crash report?
What, I'm sorry, Paul, what's crash report?
Is
I-
Titan the same as your crash report?
Adam, is that the same as the crash report would be in the crash reports?
Yeah, that's the source of our crash reports. Yes.
So that the data that's in the Titan is crash report data.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, so it's the crash reports that's the source, and it goes into the system, integrated system that Tennessee has.
Right.
That's called Titan. For all the law enforcement agencies participate.
Yeah. I see our good friend Angela Roper, right? Has a great point there too for your Go Jacks, and great tool for EVs, right? For not wanting to spin those wheels anymore, right? For risk of a reignition or an initial ignition. Yeah, for the EV, that's a great tool. We keep from moving those wheels, because we know there's many instances where just the turning of the wheels has initiated a reignition or initial ignition. So yeah, that's a great point, Angela. Thank you so much for that.
I also answered one of other Angela's questions about whether we had towers on our TIM committee, and yes, we do. Typically, the president of the local towing association attends all of our TIM meetings.
So we had a couple of other questions for Adam, because we did see the presentation once before. And so one of the questions is, you guys talked about those 6 focus areas and 50 action items and 170 activities. Oh my gosh, that's a lot. Is there ownership of these activities outside of, the state DOT? Are there, sort of follow-ups in the strategic plan for those?
So yeah, in those working groups that were listed as on our organizational structure there, those groups will be over each of those focus areas. And what we want to do is have a mix of folks on those groups, so not necessarily just DOT, but have representatives from the multiple agencies. We used Racing Matrix, right, for that as well, so that we could have a good mix of staff.
Excellent. And then one other question, if you could speak to how you have these new coordinator funded positions, how did you go about with securing that funding and maintaining that funding?
So I will say that we have them in place. That we're doing this as a sort of as a pilot program. We have a GEC general engineering contract that we use, and they're SPR funds, state planning and research funds, right? So we're planning with locals to coordinate on our TIM training. So it is a pilot program. I foresee us being able to, so far with the success of with the guys out in the field and working with our regions, I feel like it's something that we're going to have to work further on and look at our funding options for the future.
Excellent, thank you. And I see that there's still dialogue ongoing in terms of the technology that Chief Thayer Smith was speaking to in terms of GoJacks. I'm curious whether that process and technology has ever in the Austin region been applied for commercial vehicles. So you're larger.
Yeah, unfortunately, though, they have a pretty standard weight limit on them. They're really only useful for passenger vehicles to move those off the roadway. So if it's anything bigger than a regular passenger car, we'll have to wait for the tow.
Okay.
A question for you, Chief. Do any of your, have you considered or do any of your vehicles, battalion chief buggies or light duty, have push bumpers, or did you ever consider a push bumper?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I drive a red police interceptor with a push bar on it, and I do it myself on occasion. I did it last week. I stopped with one of my crews at an incident, and I pushed it off myself. We also have agreements, MOUs through our aim high that back before we had the authority to do it ourselves with the Austin Police Department. If they provided the chains, we would drag stuff off the roadway. Now that was 15 years ago when we first kind of started, 20 years ago when we first started this. But yeah, we would get it off the roadway in any manner possible. But yeah, we'll push, we'll pull, anything to get them off the roadway.
Very good.
So I also see a couple of people that have raised their hands, and I don't know if they're phone call-in listeners and they have questions. Kevin, are we able to allow them to ask that question verbally?
Yeah, just give me 1 minute.
Okay, so just give us a second and we'll try to allow you to speak. I see Bobby Clevenger, Kyle Irvin, and I'm going to butcher this, but Kuzaima Madi. So you should be able to unmute yourselves. Bobby, if you want to go first.
Yes, sorry about that. That was a mistake. Didn't mean to do that.
Sorry, do you have a question, Bobby?
No, that was a mistake. I didn't mean to hit that. Sorry
Okay,
about that.
no worries. How about Kuzaima Madi? Do you have a question? If you do, feel free to unmute yourself. All right, it looks like maybe he does not have a question. So I think if there are no more questions, I'll turn it back over to you, Joe.
Yeah, I have one. I just try to stretch it along for Chief for Chief, and ties into Adam. With your push, pull, drag, drive, do whatever you have to do. Have you ever utilized that or encountered that for a working EV fire to get it off the roadway to get it to? I know it's not natural for the fire department to relocate its fire, right?
No, but
it's just not normal.
No, but we actually do have that in our policy. We recently bought one of the EV blankets for our Special Operations Battalion Chief. So it's just the only one we have in the city. It's on that vehicle. All of our battalion chief trucks have winches on the front of them. So we do have it in our EV response policy that even like if it's on fire in a garage of a house to save the house, that if we can get a hold of it and pull it out, we'll pull it out. So we haven't done one on the roadway yet. We've only had 2 or 3 that I'm aware of in the last few years here, even though we have a tremendous amount of Teslas in this city. We've been fortunate to only have a couple of fires thus far.
Well, I raise that question from, as the EV discussion continues on, that we have to keep in mind, right, with these extended fires, that even though the fire may have all fires eventually go out, right? But even though it may be brought under control and suppressed, if it stays on the road surface long enough, or God forbid it's on a bridge or in a tunnel, right? The longer it burns, right, you may eventually get that vehicle out of there. But because of the damage that may be done to the infrastructure or suspected damage, that travel part of the roadway may need to stay closed, right, until it can be inspected and or repaired. So that's why I always ask the question of, relocating the fire to a non-traveled roadway portion. That I know is a tactic that's being used by some departments, kind of scattered across the country, just to get it off the road and onto a soft shoulder or off to an exit ramp off to the side, and then let it go ahead and do its thing, right, and do what you can for it. But to get it off of that traveled roadway, because fire might be out, but the lane may still be closed for who knows how long. So just food for thought, things to consider. Cool. Thanks for dropping that in there, Todd. We appreciate it. Yep. Well, any other questions for our friends, our presenters, or us folks at Federal Highway? We'll be happy to take them. Okay, well, Paul or Vishali, any final words?
I believe we have listening session. Next slide.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. My apologies. I'm sorry. This silence made me go somewhere else, right? But yeah, here we go. Crash Responder Safety Week strategies. So chime in, let us know, right? What do you need, or what's your desire, or what's your plan for CRSW, and your sphere of influence, right, counts and plays a huge part of this. So let us know. Talk to us. You can do it right now. Drop some thoughts or into the chat, or I don't know if we have the ability for folks to unmute themselves if they have something to say.
Yeah, I think we can unmute the audience if interested. And, we really want to hear that there is that CRSW toolkit on NOCoE. We've had the all-state planning webinars that happen a couple of months in advance and on a monthly basis. What else do folks see as potentially missing? Or something new that they'd like to try to do in terms of promoting Crash Responder Safety Week? And are you doing something? We've heard some great things from Dr. Hardin, Angela Roper in the past, and others. We shared this incredible achievement from Wisconsin in promoting Crash Responder Safety Week earlier. Joe shared that, but where do we need to look to get to that next level in terms of visibility and national awareness? Okay, so
There's some good stuff coming into the chat there, Brian. Appreciate that. South Carolina Tim sharing CRSW across 11 Tim teams in the last 2 months. That's great stuff. Thank you, Brian. You're always on the ball. Appreciate it. Angela, once again, now doing 3,100 printed info with CRSW on pizza boxes. That was Dr. Hardin, right? That was great stuff. I mean, that's thinking out of the box, and and getting a captive audience, if you would, right? Everybody loves pizza, and there it is, right on top of the box. So great stuff. Others are doing rest stops, truck stops, and other places. So.
And since you are doing such amazing things, make sure that, you know, we can recognize you as a CRSW ally in action. You know, it's the great ideas, rip and repeat. And this was the National Roadway Safety Strategies, you know, had an allies in action effort. And so that's what we're trying to do for Crash Responder Safety Week. You know, upload your logo, share with us what you're doing, and we'd love to try to feature you during the national kickoff webinar. So I did put that in the chat again as well. So.
Yeah, great stuff.
All right.
Along with that week, we'll also be hosting the executive leadership group in DC for our good friends. It'll be a great time to talk crash responder efforts and across the country. So please share it with us, and we'll share it with them. That's that sphere of influence.
That's good.
All right, got to keep it spinning.
All right, so perhaps today we have the unique pleasure of giving everyone back 15 to 20 minutes of their day. If there's no other
Great
feedback.
stuff. I'll just take the time to thank Adam Perez and Assistant Chief Smith. Thank you so much for your time and your information and willingness to share it with everyone. Traffic incident management saves lives every single day. It's probably doing it while we're sitting here talking, I'm sure. So, you know, please, you know, keep doing what you're doing. Reach out to us, reach out to others. If you encounter that roadblock, no pun intended, or that hurdle that you just can't seem to get over, because we too have a good sphere of influence, right? And can help you out and guide you in that right direction. So along with my partners, Paul Jodoin and Jim Austrich, and the great help of Vishali Shaw and the great efforts and work from our good friends at NOCoE. Thank you. Have a safe day, and we'll see you next month, December 12th. Remember, it's going to be early in December, right? So keep that in mind. All right. Well, thanks everybody. Appreciate your time.
Actually, Joe, it's no the CRSW kickoff webinar is replacing Talking Tim, but that CRSW, don't forget did we mention that already?
I couldn't hear what you were saying, Paul. You were broken up on my
See,
end.
so you're jumping to December, but in November, we're having the CRSW webinar on Monday of the CRSW week, and that is replacing Talking Tim for November. So we're not really skipping November, right?
We're not skipping
Did you
November.
already
That would be the 18th, right?
Right. You already,
That's
did
the
you
18th.
added
That Monday? Or, right.
Yeah.
No, I don't believe I mentioned that at all,
Yeah.
Paul.
So,
Thank you.
yeah. So Monday of CRSW is the 18th, right, Vishali? And don't forget that
Yes.
webinar. It's our Talking Tim webinar, but that month we're going to have it during Crash Responder Safety Week. And it's Monday, the 18th. So we'll be sending you the typical invitation that you see, the announcement that you see from us on Gov Delivery, and then we are early in December because of the other holidays and everything. So wanted to make sure that was clear. We still we need you and invite you and want expanded participation for at November 18th, right, Michelle? Do I have the date right?
Yes,
the
it is
18th,
November 18th at 1 p.m. It's in the chat, and the link to register is also in the chat.
Hey,
Yeah.
Vishala, that link goes to an old webinar. I don't think it's the
Oh.
right one, or I did something wrong because it says that's for October 9th and you can no longer register.
Okay, let me go ahead and check on that. Very odd. We'll go ahead and fix that up. Here we go. We'll try one more time.
Yeah.
let's try that second link.
So folks will still get the normal announcements that we get for that, but we just wanted to remind you, it's a sort of a big deal putting in our usual effort to to participate, kick off the Crash Responder Safety Week from our end, and we wanted to make sure we included everybody, so we didn't want us to miss that.
That one works.
So, yeah, that
Okay.
second one. worked.
Yeah,
so.
I wonder, NOCoE recently had a refresh, so I wonder if that may have changed things. So, but we're all good now. We have the updated link, and we'll send that out in the TIM newsletter as well.
Appreciate that. All righty. Well, once again, thanks for attending. See you next month, and stay safe out there. Bye-bye.